to another OBX Wave Report. I am Robert Scribbler, and I am here reporting to you remote from Rockville today because I had to go back up and pick up my clean energy vehicle, the Tesla Model 3, um, after it fell asleep just prior to my moving day down to the Outer Banks. Now, they did do a little bit of a diagnosis, and apparently this one was on me. This one was not on Tesla. I just left my battery in a slightly too low state of charge, and it got cold, and the energy necessary to keep the main battery, functional, was not sufficient to get through to the next day. So by the time I got to the vehicle, apparently, according to the Tesla folks, it had zero state of charge. So this was on me. And presently, this Tesla Model 3 at 70,000 miles, I have had zero maintenance on this vehicle. It's, like no oil changes. The only thing I've changed on the car is the tires, 70,000 miles. So amazing. I'm going to talk about clean vehicles more later on when I'm done with my basic wave report for today. Again, we are at a remote location, but welcome to the OBX Wave Report again, where your reporter Robert Scribbler here talks all things waves, beach lifestyle, weather and climate, and where I take you on an adventure with me. And I know we've had some relatively basic adventures so far, but I anticipate knocking the game up a notch or two here as we go along. So, of course, many of the wave reports will probably be relatively basic like this one, but every now and again we'll get a little bit more intense. I don't want to reveal too many spoilers for you, but I've got some plans and to bring you along with me on some fun and maybe a little bit of risk taking, maybe not too crazy, but this is the wave report after all, where we talk surf and waves in the ocean and all the various dynamic forces at play in an environment that is still rather wild. And in the modern day, that's a bit of a unique thing. That's a bit of that's something that most of us in our day-to-day lives don't really tap into so much. So yeah, for today, I'm going to jump into the wave report, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about clean cars again. And I know I talked a little bit once before about it, but I'm going to go a little bit more into depth on some of my thinking about clean energy vehicles. But first, let's talk about conditions over on the Outer Banks. We're going to start out at Jeanette's Pier, which is always our first stop for the wave report. Today at Jeanette's Pier, the wave height is 1 to 2 feet. The wave period is 11 seconds for the primary swell and 6 seconds for the secondary swell. Winds are out of the south-southeast at a very strong 22 miles per hour. And with this direction, it's cross-shore wind, so you're going to end up probably with a lot more chop and a longshore current as well if you do decide to hop into the water out there at Jeanette's Pier. The air temperature is presently 63 degrees Fahrenheit. The ocean water temperature is 60 degrees, which is rather warm for this time of year. I know that doesn't sound warm for those of you who are, understand water temperatures. So you will need cold weather protection if you go out, probably at least a light wetsuit. So keep that in mind given the conditions. The weather conditions down there are cloudy, breezy. There's some expected rain potentially later on in a couple of hours. The high temperature for the day is 64 degrees Fahrenheit, so temperatures will slowly fall throughout the day. We're already about at our high temperature for the day at Jeanette's Pier now. So moving on down to the coast to Rodanthe, the wave heights are about the same at 1 to 2 feet. The wave period is 11 seconds for the primary swell and 4 seconds for the secondary swell. Winds are also rather strong at Rodanthe, out of the south-southeast there at 23 miles per hour. So another cross-shore wind coming in there pretty strong. So there's going to be likely a lot of churn to this surf, a longshore current, Pay attention. So even though the waves are relatively or not super large, you could end up with some rough conditions out there with that strong cross-shore wind. It's got a little bit of an onshore component, but mostly cross-shore. The air temperature right now is 66, excuse me, 66 degrees Fahrenheit, and the ocean water temperature is 63 degrees Fahrenheit, so a little bit warmer than Jeanette's Pier as we would expect. Weather conditions are light rain and wind with the expected high of 67 degrees Fahrenheit, which we're about now at 66, so it might bump up a degree or two, but then start to fall slowly and steadily throughout the day as you get the backside of a front coming in. And then moving on down the coast, making that right turn on Route 12 toward the west and dropping off over at Frisco. Looking at Frisco, we see the wave heights are a bit larger, which we would expect with such strong southerly winds coming more onshore over there at Frisco. The wave heights are 2 to 3 feet. The wave period is 4 seconds for the primary swell, so a pretty quick period there, and 7 seconds for the secondary swell. The winds are out of the south-southeast at 25 miles per hour, and with that south-facing beach, that is an onshore flow. The air temperature is 68 degrees, which sounds pretty balmy here in Rockville, where I'm experiencing 50-degree temperatures. And the ocean water temperature is 67 degrees Fahrenheit. So again, rather warm for the year, for the time of year down there, but you'll likely still need some cold weather protection even if you're down there at Frisco. The weather is cloudy and windy with an expected high today of 68. So we're at the high, and at Frisco, the air temperatures will tend to drop off as well. So that concludes our wave report section of the wave report. If you're interested in more information about waves, I recommend you go to check out magicseaweed.com. It's a fantastic resource for all things surf and surf conditions and water sports. And they've got some great articles on the site now about the massive waves that were recently experienced over there in Portugal, over at Navarre. When a bomb low pressure system just really churned up the North Atlantic and sent some rage and I believe 80-foot waves right into that deep water channel there over at Navarre. So go on, check out Magic Seaweed, and if you need more wave information or just to enjoy some amazing articles about the crazy surf going on around the world, and just get into some surf lifestyle there over at Magic Seaweed. So for now, I'm going to go back, and I know I started talking about my Tesla Model 3 here a little bit earlier, and I'm going to talk a little bit about clean energy vehicles and why I hopped into a clean energy vehicle, and I'm also going to talk about their utility and enjoyment for me. I know a lot of people, there's a lot of, I think it seems to me, anxiety about electric vehicles. There's also a lot of what I would say is kind of like a reactionary response to electric vehicles, and which is kind of understandable. Whenever there's something new in society, there tends to be a reaction, particularly among those who are resistant to change or just take a negative view toward anything different. But I mean, for me, a while back, I guess, well, 3 years ago now, I decided to purchase an electric vehicle as for me, I wanted to do it not just for the draw that, like, for me, this vehicle is amazing. The Tesla Model 3, it's like a rocket on wheels, and it's quick, it's safe, it's maneuverable. The power is that is provided by the electric powertrain and the massive amount of torque that is generated doesn't feel excessive. It doesn't feel like I'm just in a muscle car, but if I need the muscle, I have it. with a combination of the way electric brakes work using magnets and the amazing torque that I get when I drive, I feel like I can just dial myself in to where I need to be on the road at any given time. It's almost, I almost feel like I think and then I'm there. It's a much closer driving experience to like intuitively understanding the road than in driving a regular internal combustion engine vehicle, which kind of feels like a big chunk of metal strapped to an ongoing, barely controlled explosion, where you're constantly having to like slam on the brakes to to stop this thing from rocketing into destruction. With this vehicle, I just feel like I'm like more of a Jedi of car driving, and I read the reports about the ease of driving for the Tesla Model 3, but when I did a test drive, I was just blown away. It's a fantastic vehicle for the driving experience. And I literally do just feel like, I mean, I don't know, look at this. It's like, I feel like I'm like an astronaut just strapped into a cockpit. I know that's just crazy, but it's fantastic. The seats are, I mean, they just kind of cup you. And in those periods when you do unload that wonderful acceleration, and I wouldn't recommend going too crazy with it because I mean, there's a lot of power in these vehicles if you do get one. I mean, it really does push you back in the seat. It does give you that G-force experience. So from a driver standpoint, at least for me, the Tesla Model 3 it just totally geeks me out. It's an amazing vehicle. And I've had it for 3 years, and the new blush of it all has not worn off. I still love it. Um, it's just great. But so from a personal perspective, I purchased the Model 3 because of the driving experience and how much I enjoyed it. But from a larger perspective, I also felt that my purchase of the Model 3 would help to help, like, I would be participating as part of a system of positive change. And I know there's this kind of cynical attitude that I reject among people. And I'm not saying it's just like Americans or, like people overseas or whatever. It seems to me, and I don't know, maybe it's just something cultural for the time where we are now. But anytime someone seems to want to do something that's positive, there appears to be this cynical attitude that, oh, well, that's not real. That's just fake. That person's just faking it. And I reject that. I mean, I think that playing to our better angels and believing in our better angels is both an action that helps ourselves and the people around us, and in our nation and the world at large, but that also in a way is when you choose the better angels, it's also kind of like taking like a virtuous leap. And I don't know, I guess the cliche term would be like a leap of faith. And I don't know, any progress in the world, I believe, requires that leap. You say, okay, there's this thing I want to do. It'll probably be better. It might be better for me. It might be better for the people around me, but I won't know for sure until I try it. But once you try it and you do it, you start to learn more about how to generate more progress. So it's like these continuous actions that result in betterment. And so in a way, it's a complete reverse of the cynicism. It's believing that you can make a difference, and that when you act, you do. And so for me, taking part in the clean energy revolution by purchasing a Model 3 was a part of that. It was a part of changing my life in a way, making a tweak to bring it closer to where it needs to be in relationship to our climate, and in the context of the Wave Report, in relationship to saving our coastlines from the dynamic and destructive elements of sea level rise and increasing storm intensity. So that's the reason why I got into this crazy thing, and you know got into the Model 3 for something great, for something greater than myself, for something beyond just my gratification of enjoying a vehicle that is extraordinarily fun to drive. So having this Model 3 though for 3 years, and when I first got it, I had like all these people telling me things like, well, you're not going to be able to find enough places to charge, or um, charging is such a pain, or what about the range? Is the range going to be enough for you? And just all these worries, just people assaulting me with like all these various different worries coming from them, because I'd already kind of done the research. I'd already pre-planned how to drive my Model 3, and my experience was also a little bit more intense because I was living in a condo that did not have a charging station directly related to it. So I didn't have the benefit of having a home charger. I had to rely on the charging infrastructure around me. But after I purchased the vehicle, I have had, other than this one time, right before my move where I flaked out just a little bit, I have had no issues. The car has never run out of juice. And part of that is because of my planning, but I didn't bend over backwards to have to find charging stations. I got a wonderful app called PlugShare, which provided me a map of all the various charging locations wherever I went. And the Tesla itself provides you, Tesla Corporation provides this massive network of superchargers and daily chargers that you can access from pretty much almost anywhere, unless you're like in some weird remote location like out on the moon somewhere. It's almost certain that you're going to have some kind of Tesla charging location nearby. And living up in the Maryland region, there were just massive amounts of charging infrastructure. So, so I had no problem. I never ran out of charge, and I was, conscientious about charging, but I didn't really go out of my way to charge. I didn't really feel like it was throwing a wrench in my daily routine. And if I ever needed a really quick charge, I could just go to one of the superchargers, plug in, and use it kind of like regular folk, you know, with regular ICs, use a gas station. Um, and that was, I don't know, as far as like the pace of my life, it didn't really change that much. It was pretty easy. So I found that the naysayers were, at least from my point of view, like all the stuff that they were reflecting on to me based on their concerns, um, ended up being incorrect. And I would not relinquish this vehicle for the life of me. I love this car. I cannot say enough about how much I love the experience of driving the Tesla Model 3. Now, so from a utility standpoint, overall, this car has required less maintenance, as I said before, and it is, to me, easy to charge in my experience. So if those are the things, particularly charging, that are like getting in the way of you enjoying a clean energy vehicle or taking part in a systemic change that creates a better effect for your own self, your family, because you don't want, you don't want to be breathing those toxic emissions coming out of the tailpipe. It's not good for you to be, pumping gas and breathing those gas fumes. The gas fumes are laced with all sorts of nasty chemicals. So, I mean, just getting into a better lifestyle, both for yourself and for the world around you, to create a world that's going to be less destructive to you, your family, and the people you care about, your nation, the world at large. Um, I honestly wouldn't let a few like plugs get in the way of that. And in all honesty, it's not been any inconvenience for me at all. I do not like suffering, and I wouldn't continue to own an electric vehicle if it resulted in my suffering. Quite to the contrary, this thing has been just amazing, amazing. And so our next vehicle will also be an electric vehicle. I don't know. I go back and forth as to whether or not I want another Tesla, or if I want to try to help support some of the other electric vehicle manufacturers that are coming out with some fantastic electric vehicles. Really kind of got my eye on the electric F-150. I think that would be a fantastic vehicle for the Outer Banks area, have some nice ground clearance. It does flood out there during storms, so it'd just be nice to have a little bit more ground clearance. Although even with this vehicle here, it's more resilient to flooding because there's no tailpipe. So if the water gets up to what would typically be tailpipe level, it's not going to flood the engine. And the electric motors are more resilient to, water than ICE in any case. So this vehicle is already hardened to street flooding. Not that I would recommend taking it for a swim, although I've seen people all over the internet do things like that. I don't want to drown my Tesla Model 3, but I'm not as concerned about street flooding in this vehicle as I would typically be, because I don't have that tailpipe back there at a low level that can, then get flooded, and I don't have to worry about moving the tailpipe up, to like a snorkel level, to get, to be more resilient to street flooding. I'm already hardened to street flooding in an electric vehicle. So another aspect of an electric vehicle that kind of puts you in a better spot for today's world. I know I've kind of gone on a bit about the EV, my driving experience with a Tesla, but from the utility standpoint, from the driving standpoint, from the resiliency standpoint individually, and from the climate impact standpoint, this car is just above and beyond anything that I've ever owned. And if there's anything holding you back from owning an electric vehicle, or any fear or worry, I guess what can I say to you? Just, maybe it doesn't even really take a big leap of, faith. It just takes a little step. And I mean, if you're worried about it, maybe, take one for a test drive, or um, maybe rent one for, a couple of days, and see if it fits your lifestyle expectations and experience. If you have a home, in my opinion, and which we just now do, you can charge the vehicle at home, which is an added feature that you can't access if you own an ICE. There's no gas station at your house unless you have, like, I don't know, a gas tank under your house that you have to refill. So yeah, I mean, if you got people telling you scary things, my advice would be don't listen to them. If you there's a part of you, there's a little part of you that says, yeah, I wanna try to do the good thing, the fun thing. Do it, just do it. And I like, from my point of view, I did not regret it. I do not believe um, that there's much to regret at all when it comes to electric vehicle ownership. So that'll conclude lucky number 13 of our OBX Wave Report. I'm gonna take my Tesla Model 3 here and drive it back on down to the Outer Banks, and our next Wave Report tomorrow will be from Manteo. And for our Wave Report, we are going to do a little bit of an unboxing of some surf gear. We won't actually have a box to unbox, but I'm going to talk about some new surf gear that I've just purchased, and run through the features of that surf gear. I'm not going to spoil it for you, but I'll just, I'll go through all that tomorrow. So thank you for joining me, and please remember to try to do everything you can to save our wonderful shores and coastlines, and to live a life that's less impactful when it comes to the climate threats that are honing in on those beaches and those coastal regions that we all so much love and enjoy.